The illusion of achievement is one of the most subtle and dangerous places a human being can wander into, for it disguises itself as virtue. It tells you that ambition is progress, that the restless pursuit of more is the essence of growth. And so, from childhood, you are taught to chase grades, titles, possessions, recognition, applause. The world applauds you when you move faster, climb higher, and accumulate more. But few realize that this very pursuit, when left unquestioned, becomes a golden cage, beautiful on the outside, hollow within. The illusion of achievement convinces you that happiness is always somewhere ahead of you, dangling just out of reach, hidden in the next accomplishment, the next promotion, the next success story you write. Yet, the moment you grasp it, the satisfaction fades like mist at dawn, and again you are urged to chase something else. In this endless cycle of striving, the self begins to dissolve. You become defined not by what you are, but by what you do. Your being becomes a checklist, your value a scoreboard. And the tragedy is that no one notices the moment they become trapped. The illusion feeds on the idea that achievement brings meaning, but meaning cannot be manufactured. It must be lived. A flower does not strive to bloom, it simply blooms because that is its nature. The river does not rush to reach the sea, it flows because flowing is its essence. But the modern mind, consumed by the illusion of achievement, forgets its nature entirely. It becomes obsessed with destinations, blind to the beauty of the journey. The danger of this illusion is not in success itself, but in the identification with it. There is nothing wrong with building, creating, or succeeding. These are natural expressions of human potential. The harm comes when your entire sense of worth is tied to what you accomplish. When your peace depends on the approval of others, you become a prisoner of their applause. You begin to fear stillness because stillness feels like failure. You fear rest because rest feels unproductive. And so, you fill every quiet moment with activity, unaware that this very business is the slow death of your spirit. The irony is cruel. The more you chase achievement, the further you drift from fulfillment. True achievement is not measured by trophies or titles, it is measured by awareness. It is found not in climbing ladders, but in realizing there is nowhere to climb. To awaken from this illusion is to see that success is not a place you reach, but a state of being you return to. It is the peace of doing what you love without the need for validation. It is the calm joy of knowing that existence itself is enough. When you act from this place, your achievements cease to be burdens. They become expressions of your inner harmony. Many people spend their entire lives chasing shadows of happiness, mistaking them for the light. They chase because they believe that only by becoming something will they finally be someone. But you were never meant to become anything other than what you already are, a living expression of the infinite. Achievement, in its truest form, is not about adding more to yourself, but about uncovering what you already possess. It is realizing that the very act of being, breathing, thinking, feeling, is the most profound success there is. To see through the illusion of achievement is to awaken to simplicity. It is to understand that joy does not come from reaching a peak, but from dancing in the valley. It is to realize that your worth is not a project to be completed, but a truth to be remembered. When this understanding dawns, ambition transforms into creativity, effort becomes play, and life itself becomes art. You no longer climb the mountain to reach the sky. You climb because the sky is already within you. The prison of comparison is one of the most deceptive and corrosive places where the human spirit can be confined. It begins quietly, almost innocently, as we observe the world around us. Someone more beautiful, more successful, more confident, more admired. And without realizing it, a subtle voice begins whispering in the mind, "You are not enough." What makes this prison so dangerous is that it is invisible. Its bars are not made of metal, but of perception. It convinces you that your value depends upon how you measure against others. You begin to live in a hall of mirrors, constantly reflecting others' lives and mistaking their reflections for your truth. Comparison fragments the soul. It divides your peace into pieces scattered across the achievements and failures of others. You start to judge yourself not by your own growth, but by the external markers of those around you. If someone rises, you feel you have fallen. If someone shines, you feel dimmed. But the truth is, another person's light does not diminish yours. It simply reveals that light exists in many forms. The universe has never made two identical waves, two identical leaves, or two identical souls. Each is unique, unrepeatable, and incomparable. Yet the mind trapped in comparison refuses to see this. It becomes obsessed with ranking, with labeling, with defining its place in a hierarchy that never truly existed. The comparison trap thrives in a world that glorifies competition. From an early age, you are told to be the best student, the best worker, the best version of yourself. And while self-improvement has its beauty, it becomes poison when driven by the need to outshine others. You begin to wear the masks of perfection, hiding your flaws, fearing your authenticity. You live not as yourself, but as a performance designed for validation. The tragedy is that this constant measuring creates an illusion of progress while stealing your peace. You may appear successful to others, but inside, you are lost, a wanderer moving further away from your essence. The danger of comparison lies in its subtle power to distort reality. When you look at others, you see only their surface, their highlights, their victories, their smiles. You rarely see the hidden struggle, the doubts, the fears behind the curtain. You compare your whole story with someone else's single moment, and the result is despair. The mind forgets that every flower blooms in its own season. The rose does not envy the lotus. It knows its fragrance, its color, its timing. The river does not compete with the ocean. It flows toward it, knowing both are made of the same water. Yet humans, with all their awareness, forget this sacred harmony. They fight to be more rather than to be. Freedom from comparison comes through understanding, not effort. It begins the moment you realize that your path is not supposed to look like anyone else's. The rhythm of your growth, the shape of your journey, the timing of your transformation, all are uniquely yours. When you stop looking sideways and start looking inward, life begins to feel lighter. You no longer see others as threats, but as mirrors reflecting parts of your own potential. Their success becomes inspiration, not intimidation. Their beauty becomes a reminder that beauty wears infinite forms. To escape the prison of comparison is to return to wholeness. It is to remember that your worth is inherent, untouched by praise or criticism. You were born complete, long before anyone taught you to compare. The universe does not make mistakes, and it certainly did not make you to be a copy. You are a unique expression of existence, and that alone is enough. When this truth sinks deep into your being, envy dissolves into gratitude, competition into compassion, and comparison into celebration. You no longer ask, "Am I better?" but simply live in the joy of being yourself. The noise of distraction is one of the most powerful forces pulling humanity away from its true essence. It is not merely the sound of the outer world, but the constant inner hum of thought, craving, and restlessness. It disguises itself as progress, as connection, as productivity, yet beneath its glittering surface lies a deep forgetfulness. We live in an age where silence feels uncomfortable, where stillness feels empty, and where our minds are constantly flooded with information but starved of meaning. Distraction has become the great escape, a way to avoid the one place we fear most, ourselves. Every moment, we are surrounded by noise, screens that flash, notifications that demand attention, conversations that rarely touch depth. Our senses are saturated, yet our souls remain malnourished. We scroll endlessly through fragments of other people's lives, comparing, reacting, consuming, but rarely reflecting. The modern human being has become like a radio stuck between stations, endlessly buzzing, never tuning in to the signal of truth. The tragedy is that in this restless search for stimulation, we lose touch with our own inner voice, the one that whispers softly beneath the chaos. That voice does not compete for attention. It speaks only when the noise fades. The danger of distraction is that it gives the illusion of living while quietly draining the life out of us. We confuse activity with purpose, motion with meaning. The mind, addicted to stimulation, becomes restless when confronted with stillness. We say we want peace, yet we run from the very silence in which peace lives. We fill our time with endless doing, forgetting that being is the root of all true doing. A distracted mind cannot perceive reality as it is. It sees only fragments, always reaching for what's next, never resting in what is now. This addiction to distraction is not just external, it is internal as well. Even when the world is quiet, the mind keeps talking. It replays memories, invents worries, creates endless scenarios that never happen. It refuses to be silent because silence reveals the truth. That much of what we chase is unnecessary, that much of what we fear is imaginary. When we allow the noise to rule, we live like exiles in our own consciousness. We become strangers to our inner world, always seeking fulfillment in the external. A new message, a new possession, a new form of escape. But fulfillment cannot be found in what distracts us, it is found in what connects us. To awaken from the noise of distraction, one must learn the sacred art of silence. Silence is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of awareness. When you sit quietly, without your phone, without your music, without your thoughts rushing ahead, something remarkable happens. You begin to notice the subtler layers of existence, the rhythm of your breath, the gentle hum of life all around, the presence of something vast and still within you. This stillness is not empty, it is alive, radiant, and infinite. It is the space from which all clarity, creativity, and peace emerge. But to return to silence, you must face the discomfort it brings. The mind will resist, whispering that you are wasting time, that you must keep moving, keep doing. Yet if you stay, if you endure the initial unease, you will discover that silence is not your enemy but your home. Within it lies the freedom that distraction promises but never delivers. When you reclaim silence, the world itself begins to sound different. You hear the wind not as background noise but as a symphony. You see the sky not as scenery, but as presence. The ordinary becomes sacred again, and in that quiet, the true self, long buried beneath the static of distraction, begins to awaken. It smiles not with pride or possession, but with recognition. It knows that it was never lost, only unheard beneath the noise. The trap of identity is among the deepest illusions that bind the human spirit, for it gives the appearance of stability while concealing the truth of impermanence. From the moment you are born, the world begins to name you, shape you, and define you. You are told who you are, your gender, your nationality, your religion, your occupation, your personality type. You are handed a mask and instructed to wear it proudly. And in time you forget that it is a mask at all. You begin to believe that your labels are your essence, that your story is your soul. But identity, no matter how grand or humble, is only a construct, a pattern of thought held together by memory and habit. When you cling to it as truth, you confine an infinite being within the boundaries of a word. This trap is subtle because it feels empowering at first. To have an identity seems to give you meaning, belonging, and direction. You say, I am this, or I am that, and those statements bring a sense of certainty in an uncertain world. But the moment you define yourself too tightly, you also limit yourself. You become attached to how others perceive you, to the roles you play, and to the image you maintain. When the world affirms this image, you feel secure. When it challenges it, you feel lost. The tragedy is that this sense of self, this fragile construction of ideas, is constantly changing. Yet we treat it as something fixed, something to defend. We fear losing it, not realizing that what can be lost was never truly us. The danger of identity lies in confusion, the confusion between the temporary and the eternal, between form and essence. A role is something you perform, it is not who you are. You can play the role of a teacher, a parent, an artist, a leader. But these are expressions, not definitions. The true self is the awareness that witnesses them all, untouched by their rise and fall. When you believe that your identity is who you are, you begin to live defensively. You seek validation to strengthen the mask. You feel threatened when others disagree with your opinions, as if your existence depends upon being right. You suffer when circumstances force you to change roles, forgetting that change is the very nature of life. Many people spend their lives building elaborate structures of identity, careers, reputations, beliefs, even spiritual personas, hoping to find permanence in them. But like sandcastles, they are eventually washed away by the tide of time. The body ages, titles fade, relationships shift, and everything external eventually dissolves. Yet something remains. The silent witness that has been present in every moment, the awareness that watches birth, growth, and decay without itself being touched by them. That witnessing presence is the real you, beyond identity. To awaken from the trap of identity is not to reject the world or deny your roles, but to play them consciously. You can act fully, love deeply, create passionately, while knowing that you are not confined to any of it. You wear your identities lightly, as garments that serve their purpose for a time, then fall away when the season changes. When you no longer cling to who you think you are, you open to what you truly are: infinite potential, boundless consciousness. You become fluid, adaptable, and free. Freedom from identity brings a profound peace. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone. You no longer fear failure, for failure only exists within the story of the ego. You no longer fear death, because death only threatens what was temporary. When you rest as the awareness behind all experience, you discover that there was never anything to defend, never anything to lose. The trap of identity dissolves, and in its place arises the vast simplicity of being: silent, spacious, eternal, and free. The fear of stillness is one of the most subtle and pervasive forms of suffering in the modern world. It is a fear that hides behind business, behind endless activity, behind the need to constantly fill silence with sound. Most people do not even recognize this fear because they mistake it for motivation, productivity, or purpose. Yet beneath the surface of this constant movement lies a deep anxiety, the fear of encountering oneself without distraction. Stillness reveals, and revelation can be terrifying. When the noise fades, the masks fall away, and what remains is the naked truth of who you are. For many, that truth feels too heavy to face, so they keep running from silence, from solitude, from themselves. We have become a culture that glorifies movement. The faster you move, the more successful you appear. The busier you are, the more important you seem. Yet this constant momentum creates a kind of spiritual blindness. You cannot see the stars while spinning in circles. You cannot hear the truth while shouting over your own thoughts. The fear of stillness is not really about silence. It is about what silence might uncover: the hidden pain, the unanswered questions, the unmet parts of the soul. In stillness, there is no distraction to protect you from your own depth. The mind resists this because it thrives on noise. Noise gives it something to do. Silence forces it to stop, and in that stopping it begins to die, not in a physical sense, but in the sense of losing its illusion of control. The irony is that everything we are searching for, Peace, clarity, strength, truth already exists within stillness. Yet because stillness feels uncomfortable, we keep seeking those things outside ourselves. We chase after experiences, achievements, and pleasures, hoping they will bring peace, when all along peace was sitting quietly inside us, waiting to be acknowledged. Stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness so vast and quiet that the restless mind cannot comprehend it. It is the infinite space from which all things arise and to which all things return. When you dare to enter it, you discover that the stillness you feared was never your enemy. It was your own essence calling you home. But the journey toward stillness requires courage. The first moments of silence are often filled with discomfort. The mind begins to chatter even louder, throwing up fears, memories, and restlessness as a defense mechanism. It tells you that you are wasting time, that you should be doing something useful, that you must escape this quiet. Yet if you stay, if you simply breathe and observe without judgment, something begins to shift. The surface noise fades and a deeper awareness starts to emerge. You begin to notice that behind all the movement of thought, there is a watcher, a presence that does not move, that has never moved. That presence is not afraid, it is eternal, calm, and wise. It has been with you since the beginning, watching all your joys and sorrows unfold like waves upon the sea. In that realization, fear dissolves. You begin to understand that stillness is not a void but a mirror reflecting the truth of existence. In stillness, you see that life was never meant to be a race. It was meant to be experienced, fully, consciously, with awareness. You no longer run from silence, you rest in it. You no longer fear being alone. You discover that you were never truly alone. Stillness connects you to everything because, in its quiet embrace, you realize that everything is already within you. To no longer fear stillness is to reclaim your power. It is to stand in the center of chaos and remain unmoved. It is to understand that you do not need to chase peace. You are peace. When the mind quiets, the heart begins to speak, and its voice is the sound of life itself, timeless, tender, and whole.